5 minutes has elapsed, so we'll call our meeting back to order. Next, Mrs. Eastep, I think you wanted to make a clarification on our last item.
I did. I wanted to make it clear that Hoggard was not doing anything shady by allowing the Hot Wheels in there. The Hot Wheels was actually started in conjunction with the student government and Kim Biersted's class, who supported and I guess financially supported the formation of Hot Wheels in conjunction with Justin. So I just wanted to make that clear that it was, and with Dave Spencer's blessing, everything was kosher. So that's it.
So Dave, you weren't running an underground basketball league?
Well, thank you for that clarification. Okay, was that it?
That's it.
Okay.
I'm done.
Next item, item R, Hill School. Turn it over to Dr. Markley and Dr. Hickey and
Just for
those that.
quick recap of the previous pieces. This was one that was sort of working through when just before I got here. The Hill School had started at that time as a new school. They wanted to form a partnership with the district. They run basically an Norton Gillingham program. Their student ratios are 4 to 1. And primary concerns from our point from the district were a couple. One was dealing with FAPE, and could we abdicate our legal responsibilities under FAPE in terms of providing a basic education for these students? And then if I allowed a parent to go to that school who could afford to go to that school, am I obligated then to pay for a student who wanted to go to that school who doesn't? And if I open up this relationship with the Hill School, and then am I opening up a can of worms where then anybody who's running some kind of alternative program for special ed students, am I obligated to allow them also to take students outside of the main, basically abdicating half our responsibility? When we looked around the state at that time, there were a couple of districts that had some relationship with the Hill School, but no district level formal relationship. In fact, I think if you look at the 09 packet, there's a lady there, Hill, who sent a letter from Hill School. She's now the special ed director in Durham and is actually severing their relationship with Hill School in Durham, is my understanding, because of some of the legal issues. And I'll let Wayne address the legal issues in a little more detail.
The legal issues that I had looked at back in 2010 were several. One was regarding accountability, because if you have a student enrolled in your system who is being taught in a private school for some of the school day and receiving instruction and grades from that private school, there is accountability on the part of the principal in school for that child's performance, but yet the principal doesn't have control over the instruction that is delivered to that child, or the qualifications of the instructors that are instructing the child. You also had issues of transportation and supervision. I think those could probably be worked out with an appropriate agreement with the Hill School. But primarily, I saw the accountability issue as being problematic, because the school would have no control over what's happening in the private school.
And scheduling would be a concern too, would it not, Mr. Bullard? If the child is receiving the reading instructions, say at the Hills School, and yet they have to be tested on the state standards, and they don't have the same curriculum, then we have to provide, when they come back to our school, that kind of instruction, even though the classroom schedule may be different? How would that work?
Well, there would be scheduling issues. For instance, if the Hill School is teaching reading in the morning, and so the child wants to take math in the afternoon, but the school that the child is assigned to only teaches math in the morning, then you're going to have a scheduling conflict there. I don't think the Hill School is asking that the schools rearrange their schedules to accommodate their children, but that was just a problem that was raised that might prevent some children from doing dual enrollment if you were to allow it.
I don't think there are any mechanical or scheduling issues that couldn't be worked out with any school that we partnered with. The bigger question are the legal questions, in terms of, can we answer those legal questions?
Well, I've been in communication with Don Hodges, who is the director of the Hill School here. According to Ms. Hodges, Moore County has just entered into a collaboration with an academy, a half-day academy. She also does. She also lists that she's saying that Durham, Wake, Orange, Chapel Hill, Carborough, and Chatham County and Pitt County all have collaboration. So, and she sent me the copy of, and I'll forward it to everybody, the I guess the agreement that they have. My thing is, I really feel strongly that we need to try to work through the legal things, because it's supposed to be, I mean, we're talking about 28 students. No one's going to choose to pay for this half-day school if they really don't have to. So these kids are probably not ones that are passing now. They have language-based learning disabilities. These are kids who are probably not succeeding at the traditional school that they're in. I don't think anyone would choose this option if they didn't feel like they had to. But it's about the students. It's about getting them the help that they need. And I think it's imperative upon us to explore this option, because this might be an option of last resort for a lot of children. I mean, I wish it had been around longer, because we probably would have utilized it. But I think it's imperative that we try to work with the school to see what we can do, because it's providing a service for children who desperately need it. This is not for your average student. These are for children who are really, really struggling, because I don't think that you would go through the hassle of bringing them there and then bringing them to your home school and giving up some of the aspects of being in a traditional school all day.
Well, and spending a great deal of money. And I agree with you in terms of, you know, the accountability issues. I mean, I hear that and I understand that from a structural standpoint. But from the standpoint of, as you point out, if these kids are failing the basics in reading and language comprehension, I mean, it almost kind of doesn't matter what they're missing, because if you can't, you know, if you don't have reading comprehension and language comprehension, well then how do you do social studies? How do you do science? I mean, how do you do these things if you don't have basic language comprehension? And so, I mean, you know, and I think the parents look at this and they say, well, our kid's not going to be successful unless they do this. And I mean, there's an argument to be made that with kids who are struggling this badly in language, they should just be doing language until they can master that and move on to the use of language. So I agree with Lisa. I don't see the accountability as a major issue. In terms of the legal issues, and I hear what Dr. Markley's saying about, you know, free, appropriate public education. You know, this is a 4-to-1 student to teacher ratio. Now, again, I don't know all the legal precedents involved, but I would suspect that most courts have held that while people are entitled to a free, appropriate public education, they're not entitled to, you know, the Cadillac public education. So they're not entitled to have a 4-to-1 teacher ratio.
But they have said that if you allow a student to access that and they pay for it themselves, then money can't be a barrier to their accessing that same academic program.
Have we seen that in court cases? I mean, have there been cases to that effect?
I'm not sure that specific issue has been decided by a court, no, not that I'm aware.
But haven't we had examples? I'm trying to think of a situation where a student went some years ago to a school in Charleston, parent took them out, and then somehow turned it around and said we were not meeting the needs of the child and so forth, and we were sued, and we had to end up paying the cost of of whatever she did with the school was in Charleston.
Well, I think that just happened in one of our recent settlements, in fact, with the Hill School. But that's also because when you go back and, you know, not to go into specifics, you know, a lot of the allegations about our special education services weren't doing proper identifications, and it has less to do with the fact that they, you know, were doing the Hill School than with that we were negligent in providing, again, that we were negligent in providing a free, appropriate public education. So the family then said, okay, my child is not receiving their free, appropriate public education, so I have no recourse but to pull my child out of the school system. And, you know, I guess when we enter into these agreements, we're kind of saying, yeah, we are a little bit negligent here, and so we will pick up the tab for this. But that's a lot different than people just saying, well, you did it for him, now you have to do it for me. You know, or his dad paid for it, so I should be able to access it through public school funds. That's a different argument.
Dr. Markley, I know when this matter came up, when Dr. West was the interim superintendent and did a great deal of investigation on it and all, one of the things that we were informed about was that there are trained teachers currently in our school system that do have training in this similar type of delivery.
Yeah, there's two types of, when we look at our records, we have teachers with two types of training. There's some who have been trained in Hill School, specific Hill Rap, which is one aspect of it, and we have teachers who are also trained in Orton Gillingham. Dale, do you remember the numbers for the Hill Rap training?
It was like 18 teachers that had some coursework. I can't say that the training is the terms that
Official,
are used.
certified.
Yeah, and probably,
They are not certified.
and then probably about a dozen who have Orton Gillingham training?
But
13.
to be a
So-
Hill School
so-
trained, you'd have to go through training for an entire year and have a mentor that has already been trained, and we don't have any.
Well, I mean, my point is, though, that if we have people who have training in this, maybe not as much as the Hill School does, but also that are already in the school system, is it not possible that we would be able to assign students much the same we do with other special education programs? And I realize, as I understand it, dyslexia is not a special education, it is a curriculum issue, is what I'm told. But could we not?
Well, let me stop you there.
Wait, no,
That's
wait,
a
let me finish,
distinction
let me
without a
finish.
difference.
Say what?
That's a distinction without a difference. It's
Well,
like, just like
you-
telling
you
a
know, you
blind
may say
person,
that, but
that's a
let me go
curriculum
far-
issue,
let-
we have to
you
give
know,
you Braille.
Dr. Hickey,
They're
I didn't
disabled.
interrupt you, if you would please.
Well, that's
Let me finish, please. Is it not possible that just as we do with kids with exceptional children's program, to be able to identify these students who are in need of this training, this help, and be able to put those students in the schools where those teachers are to work with them within the school system?
Well, what makes the Hill School work? I mean, the curriculum, the training is excellent. We've got different programs as well. You've got a 4-to-1 student ratio. And if you spend half a day working on reading and math with a student and on a 4-to-1 ratio, using Hill School or any methodology, you're going to see some kind of improvement. And that's the part that's hard to replicate in a school setting, is that 4-to-1 ratio.
I realize
we
that, but I
already-
mean, if we're already paying teachers in our system, why can we not?
So
We're
talking-
supposed to be doing that already. That's the recommendation that the board gave 2 years ago when this came up, that the students who needed it be,
Pay her as much as possible.
right.
Well, but
And
here's-
that's where we're supposed to be at the moment.
But here's the thing, I could have a class in auto mechanics. It doesn't make me a mechanic. Just because you have one class, that doesn't replicate the training that the Hill School gives. And I'm not just saying that the Hill School is the be-all and end-all, but what they do has gotten results. So if we don't replicate exactly the training, it doesn't really, it's not, you can't do the same thing. You might be able to do it with more than, a 4-to-1 ratio, but you can't do it the way that they do it. You can't, as Dr. Markley said, you can't replicate it. But just because you've had some training, some of these programs, language, the Orton Gillingham, the Hill School, they're very complex. And the reading problems, and it's not just dyslexia, it's a language-based learning disabilities that they deal with. They are extremely complex. You have to break it down into several subsections. I believe it's 5 or 6. And you have to get a program that deals with the specific disability that you have. So the Hill School's not for everyone, but you have someone that might have some training, but it's not going to replicate what the Hill School does. These are the kids, like I said, you compare them with somebody with the Hill School training, but the parents are going to choose this option. I think they only have space for about 28 kids. It's for kids who are not doing well in the setting that they're in now, whether they're paired with somebody who has the OG training or the Hill training or not. And to me, it should be about the students, not, Dr. Hickey said this before, we have to look at the positive. What are we doing for the students? If the students are in a position where they are not doing well and the parents want this option, we're all about, in other circumstances, giving them options, but we're not giving them this one.
But what is the board being asked to do?
Well, right now, we're just discussing it. But
Right.
what I would like is for this board to investigate possibilities to work with the Hill School or other places like the Hill School, rather than looking for reasons why we can't. Try to look for solutions how we can. Because ultimately, what we're talking about is trying to help these students who are failing. I mean, our mission is to help these students who are failing. And this is a good option, at least in my opinion, a good option.
Well, and
But-
we should be partnering with them for training for our teachers, and we could have a teacher who is legitimately trained. They were, I know, at one point trying to get a grant to enable them to train our teachers. And I would love to explore that possibility as well. So I guess what I would like to do is direct Dr. Markley and Ms. Askew, and maybe anybody else who's appropriate, to start a conversation with Dawn Hodges, to see what we can work out.
Then also, you also mentioned several counties when you were talking that have entered into some type of agreement.
I forwarded that information to
and
you.
that could be checked into at the same time.
Correct. And I'm sure that Dawn can provide us information, from her perspective on that. But, certainly we should check it out on our end as well.
Is it possible for us to come back at our next work session and have this as a topic and have the interested parties together so that we could discuss this?
I think it would be good to have, everyone represented that would like to be there.
I think that's
Yeah.
the best thing that we can do, instead of us in our little bubble here trying to come up with an answer. I think it's best if we have all of the parties together and to discuss it.
But I would tell you as a board, if you think this is good for kids, then we have to explore the issue of those who can't afford tuition to a program like this. We can't be a system where only those who can afford to go to this program, go to this program.
Well, but I think, again, as you point out, the 4-to-1 student ratio, we as a board have decided to keep ratios lower at some of our Title I schools. Now, you don't see children at other schools who are non-Title I suing and saying that we should get their class sizes down. Because again, as a board, we probably do think that if we kept the class sizes lower, that the children have better outcomes across the board. But we don't have the money for it.
I don't think.
But just
we
because I have
understand.
dyslexia and I live and my family can't afford this, if I'm going to allow one student to do it, I have a real problem of us not finding a way for that other student to do it.
Well, and that's something that maybe the Hill School can explore with scholarships, and I know that they are. But, we just finished talking earlier about this girls' school that we're talking about opening up, and that's gonna be limited to 75, and that's, we're talking about entering into a partnership there. That's limiting, but yet
And we're actually we're going to exclude boys. And they have a lower graduation rate.
We can't give them the same benefit. And these are the very kids who fail at the highest rate. Our LD numbers are the lowest.
And all I'm
So-
saying is if we're going to allow folks who can pay their tuition to go, then we need to find a way to make sure that those students who struggle the most also have a way to get there. If
So
this
that's-
is, if the
Then we
district
need
thinks this
to-
is
we
a
need to
good
find
thing,
grants.
then this needs to be good for all students, not just for those who can afford it.
Well, I wouldn't disagree with that. But having said that, I would disagree with that. We shouldn't penalize people because they can afford to pursue an option privately that's going to better their child. We don't do that across the board. We don't tell parents that they can't have private tennis lessons, that they can't have private piano lessons, that they can't have private voice lessons or private art lessons. What you're giving us a false choice, because what you're saying is that we should be willing to let these children fail rather than allow their parents to supplement their education. Now, I would like to, if we can come up with the money to provide this to children whose parents can't afford it, I would support that. But the choice you're giving, either we need to be able to find the funding or we can't allow people, in my opinion, all that's doing is saying we're going to help nobody.
But we also had the initial discussion with Hill School. One of the things we talked about was doing this much like a private attendance lesson outside of the school day. And that wasn't something they were willing to have a conversation
Well, I
about.
think maybe you could bring Dawn in and have her discuss that. My understanding, and this is mostly from Lisa's interactions with her, is that, because I thought that would be a great idea too. Hey, you want to do this extra, learning, great. My understanding, and I'm not an educator, and so I defer to those people who have more curriculum experience. My understanding is that the attention span of a child does not allow for that. So if your child goes to school all day long in a traditional setting, to have them sit down for another 4 hours of intense 4-on-1, curriculum, just is not a fruitful experience. Just because their attention span and fatigue, and that was my understanding. Is that?
That's correct.
Dr. Markley, is it possible for you to have the interested parties at our next work session and for us to discuss this?
Yeah, I think we need to have some discussion before the work session because that's a month away, but, yeah.
Because we've canceled the one,
Because it was the same week as our joint meeting with the
Yeah.
commissioners,
The next one will be November
so November,
19th.
19th.
So we'll have something in place before that. That's a month, that's over a month away.
That's the conference, November 19th. That would be the third Tuesday, that's not the.
yeah, that'd be right in the middle of the conference.
That'd be right in the middle of
Yeah.
the conference, the state.
Yeah,
Do we
the,
were
Move it
just
to a
discussing.
different day? Because that would be.
Let's see if we can have something
where it
before,
falls.
let's see if we can have at least some information back for the November board meeting, which is early in the month, and we can decide if we need to make an adjustment on the work session then.
November 5th meeting?
Yeah, we'll have something then.
okay. Okay, so we'll set that up then at whenever y'all set that, at the November, school board meeting. Anything else on that? Okay, item 12, call to the audience. We had no one sign up for that call to the audience. Item 13, any correspondence any board members would like to share?
I don't have any correspondence. I would, however, mention that we did have our first meeting of the calendar committee last Thursday? Yeah, Thursday, okay. And I think it's important, and I hope that this message goes out. We're trying to get as much input because every year when we come up with a calendar, we keep hearing from people that say, well, we didn't get an opportunity to speak to that. So we have asked all the principals and everyone who was there to go back to their constituencies. And I've asked, I think I asked Valita's office to put out a press release that the newspaper could put out and the television and radio could put out to say to parents who would maybe not otherwise hear this, that there is a website on the school board's website that they can go to and they can give us comment. Having said that, in the wisdom of our legislature, who has basically boxed everything in, August 25th to June, I think now it's the 12th, I think Dr. Holliday said they're letting us go to the 12th. If we're gonna have a regular Christmas break, if we're gonna give people time off at Thanksgiving, and, the other, a spring break, when you start taking all those days out, there's actually only 2 teacher work days between the 25th and the 12th. So we can't absorb anything. All the other teacher work days are outside those dates. We really don't have a lot of wiggle room. But we would like to hear from parents, and, if parents would rather have more time off, in the spring and a shorter Christmas break or something like, those are the kinds of things we need to hear. I'm not sitting up here and advocating any of that. I'm just simply saying, we don't have a lot of flexibility. If they want to write their legislators and say they need to let school boards maybe have another week, one way or the other, either in the beginning or in the end, and I know when all of this came up, I think the comments from the hotels and everybody was, given a choice, we'd rather have the people in August than in June, because a lot of people don't come down, start coming down to late part of June, 1st of July. But that's not something we can address. I mean, I guess we could write for a waiver or something, but that's not something we really have the ability to address. That's for the state legislature to address. But in any event, I wanted to take this opportunity so that the press could put that in their article someplace, that there is a website on the school board's website, and parents are welcome to provide their input.
Thank you. Any other correspondence? I'd like to share an email that I received. It should make you happy, Dr. Markley. It's the Army Ground Forces Band will be here Thursday night to perform at UNCW. Not a Navy band, a Marine band, but the Army.
And not the Air Force.
Not the Air Force. This is the Army. It sounds really great. They're going to be at UNCW at Keenan Auditorium Thursday night. They'll play with the UNCW Wind Symphony for a combined performance, and there's more of a write-up here on it. I won't read all that, but it's Thursday, October 3rd at 7:30. Tickets are $5 to the general public, and the box office will be open 1 hour prior. And it should be a really nice performance, some good stirring music that, you know, some years ago we had the Air Force Band here down
Was
at,
it the Air Force?
yeah, the Air Force.
Singing Sergeant.
Yeah, at
At
Minnie Evans, yeah. And it's quite a performance. Has anybody ever seen this Army band?
No.
Look, I'm gonna try and make that. It sounds good. Okay,
Can you buy
the,
tickets ahead of time?
well, you just said the box office opens 1 hour
Okay.
prior, so it'd be 6:30.
So mad rush.
But in the end, it'll be a grand finale, they said, with the UNCW Symphony along with the Army Band. Under announcements, the New Hanover County Board of Education and the New Hanover County Commissioners will hold a joint meeting Wednesday, October 16th at 3:30 in the library at College Park Elementary School. We're looking forward to that. The next regular meeting of the board will be on Tuesday, November 5th. Did I overlook any other announcements that anybody can think
Now,
of?
can I get with Mr. Higgins as the chair of the budget? Can we need to get that committee together at some point to put that budget
As
calendar
soon
together?
as you, tell me who the other members are, or are you just gonna let me be a dictator?
Oh, no, it was Mrs. Coble and Dr. Hickey
Okay, all right, I had not heard that.
make up the committee. I'm sorry, I thought we announced that last time. If there are no other announcements at this time, we'll need a motion to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143, 319.11A1.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, we're in closed session.